Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Books and Books and the Miami Book Fair's virtual author series. That's right. It's come to this. We've become virtual booksellers and doing virtual author events. It's great to see you all here tonight. And also, from a personal perspective, I just want to thank all of you out there for all of the incredible support that you've shown Books and Books and writers everywhere um, in this very, very difficult time that we're all facing. Um, all of us at Books and Books and the Miami Book Fair are thinking of you and really hoping that you and your families are both safe and healthy. We're presenting this series not only with the Miami Book Fair, because they're like family to us, and we've always wanted to thank them, and we do thank them for all that they do. And a lot of people have been asking about the book fair, and we will be mounting a book fair this year, whether it's virtual or physical or a combination of both. I think it's a little too early to tell. We also want to thank two sponsors who have helped promote this. One is the Literary Hub at lithub.com, and also our Miami's very own Culture Crusaders. Um, this evening, we're thrilled to welcome our good friend Brad Meltzer to celebrate the publication of his new book, The Lincoln Conspiracy. Uh, this is a phenomenal book. And, you know, we've been with Brad, I think, just about for every one of his books. We're not going to let any virus get in the way. So we're so thrilled to have him with us tonight. You know, everyone knows the story of Abraham Lincoln's assassination in 1865, but very few are aware of the original conspiracy, which was to try to kill him 4 years earlier in 1861, literally on his way to Washington, D.C. for his first inauguration. As Brad says, this is a story few people know, one that's set in a time of deep political division in America. It shows us what good leaders can do in times of strife, and it's perfectly on point for where we are today in this country. Brad, as all of you know, is every one of his books is a #1 New York Times bestseller. He's the author of The Escape Artist, as well as thrillers, as well as the amazing books for kids, the Ordinary People Change the World series. Uh, he's not only worked and operated in the world of books, but he's also one of the most well-read and best-selling writer of comics as well, and maybe he'll talk a little bit about that tonight. He's also the host of the History Channel's Brad Meltzer's Decoded and Brad Meltzer's Lost History. And on top of that, he's also premiered on PBS, based on his Ordinary People Change the World series, a wonderful show for kids. He lives in South Florida with his wife and family, and it's a thrill to have him with us, as always. Another friend of the store is someone who's made a huge impact here in Coral Gables. He's the CEO of the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce, a position he's held for the past 14 years. And he also is not going to let this virus get between him and helping all of the businesses that exist here in Coral Gables. He's the chief association executive responsible for the day-to-day success of the more than 1,600 member chamber. He works with volunteer leaders that are engaged in the chamber's long-term business development strategies and community initiatives. The Coral Gables Chamber is ranked as the second largest chamber in South Florida, according to the 2019 South Florida Business Journal Book of Lists. And I know with all the good work Mark is doing, he's going to make sure that this chamber still ranks as high as it always has. He's not going to let any of us go out of business, virus or no virus. So, on behalf of Books and Books and all of us out there, I want to welcome Mark and Brad to this very, very special event tonight. Mark?
Thank you so much, Mitchell. It's an honor to be with you and Books and Books. You are truly one of our iconic businesses, independent, family owned, and thriving even in this moment of coronavirus. And I want to thank all of you who have made time to join us tonight as we have an opportunity to talk with Brad Meltzer, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. But first, many of you on the line and on the crowdcast tonight are here because it is my 52nd birthday, and so I'm honored to spend a little time with many of you, friends and new friends, celebrating my 52nd. You know, Abraham Lincoln, as he was traveling to Washington to be inaugurated, was also 52. So I feel there's a bit of a personal and cosmic connection. I have been a lover of Lincoln since I was 8 years old and traveled to Springfield with my family for a family vacation. And since that time, I have done everything possible and consumed everything possible related to Lincoln. And tonight is no different. So I want to thank Brad personally for bringing us The Conspiracy. Most importantly, I also want to thank our partners at Books and Books, the Miami Book Fair, Lit Hub, and Culture Crusaders. And our chamber is a proud partner as well. We have been part of this community for the last 95 years. And right now, we're very much engaged in working on a relief, reimagination, reopening, and recovery plan for Coral Gables. And Mitchell, Christina from the team, and others are actively engaged in our business recovery. So stay tuned for more on that as we get ready to reopen in a careful, thoughtful, and healthy way. Most importantly, even in a remote way, we hope you'll continue to support small businesses, your local restaurants, your local retailers like Books and Books, and take a staycation this summer and support all of our local hotel partners. Now, as you heard from Mitchell, a great introduction to Brad. We're going to bring him on now and remind you he's going to give us a few comments about the Lincoln conspiracy, and then I'll be back to ask some questions. You as an audience are also encouraged to ask a question, and you can add that into the chat at the bottom left hand of this crowdcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure on behalf of Books and Books and the Coral Gables of Chamber of Commerce to welcome Brad Meltzer.
Oh, Meltzer, you've done it again. I mean, I always sit here and read my own books. Can I just show you? Let me show you the funniest part of all this is that I wanted to see what chapter I opened to. You can't make this up. 69. I did upside down both ways. Don't think of the dirty way, you pervs. I know what you're thinking, but I did open the 69. So what do I possibly say? There is no nerdier place to be on a Friday night than where we are right now, right? We could be doing, well, really not much of anything in the world, but nothing is nerdier than Friday night at a bookstore. And this is a bookstore as far as I'm concerned. So I personally would not be anywhere but here. Thank you. Thank you for showing me that you are as nerdy as myself. And it is proof that I can tell you we're not alone. I know it feels like it. We're all these weird in our own little kind of huddled down. But just to know that you are out there means a lot to me. And I hope you feel that. Mark Trowbridge, who's our hero tonight, spending his 52nd birthday, he saw all your nerdiness and was like, I want up it because it's my birthday. And then he even out-nerded it and said, and Abraham Lincoln was the same age. So he may win on that. But thank you for joining us here tonight, especially because you had to pay to be here tonight. And I know the price of the ticket gets you the book, and I know we'll sign it, and it will be, but let me tell you why it's awesome. Because we are doing one in St. Louis like this next week, and there's another one in Atlanta and Dallas that they're doing. But they all get, the signed books that they get are going to be these book plates that are going to be stuck into the thing. And that's nice, and I'm glad we did them. You are the only people in the whole country who will have an actual signed copy of this, because it's going to come to my house on Sunday, and I'm going to write in it to whoever you want me to write to or just to sign it. You will have the only ones. And usually, I sign all across the country. Not this time. Why? Because our favorite bookstore is always Books and Books, baby. This is it. I wear this shirt all the time. They gave it to me free, and they thought like, oh, that's nice. I wear it all the time. So thank you. And it's my way of saying, Christina and Mitchell, I love you. I love everyone at Books and Books. They know I have been here every single book I've done, every single one. And this is no exception. I thought we'd somehow miss it on this one. But even the virus could not keep us away. So thank you to Books and Books. Thank you to Mark for being the host with the most. He's going to come back And the reason we also want to Mark here, not just because he is a stunning, amazingly lively and really funny person. He has a great dry wit. And not because I loved him when I met him all those years ago and we hit it off, but also because we want this to be different. We don't want this to be the standard event. You pay good money for this. We're going to get you the book, but we want it to be a special event. And I brought a couple of surprises also that no one else can see. I don't care what other events I do. They are not going to see what I'm going to show you tonight. I promise you that. Because you know why? Because I had no money when I was growing up. And so I'm spiteful that anyone who does it for free, they are not getting what you are getting right now, period. So I'm very happy about that. So where are we going to go? Let's talk very quickly about the Lincoln conspiracy. Because listen, at this point, we all know the John Wilkes Booth story. We know how he ended Abraham Lincoln's life and his presidency. This is, of course, the first secret plot to kill Abraham Lincoln. It is at the start of his presidency, truly even before it begins. And why does it happen? Because when Abraham Lincoln is going to raise his right hand and become the 16th president of the United States, the only way he can do that is he must take a train. He has to go from his home in Springfield, and then he will go to Washington, D.C. I don't know if that looks right, but on my screen it looks right. It's probably the backwards way. It's like a weatherman. I'm a weatherman now. But he has to go to Washington, D.C., and the only way to get from Illinois to D.C. is you got to go on any train, no matter which one you take, you got to go through Baltimore. And Baltimore at the time, Maryland, was a slave state. So the plot of the book is very simple. A secret society is planning to kill Abraham Lincoln and ambush him when he comes through Baltimore and then his presidency before it ever begins. And that's the setup, right? But what I think is really interesting is the action, right? Just where it begins. So we open on this train and it's speeding through the middle of the night. And on this train, there's lots of passengers, but we're focused on really, there's 4 on there. So one of them, there's a businessman, there's 2 businessmen, I should say. And then there's a woman, and then she's got an invalid brother who's kind of hunched over. None of them are who they say they are. Because one of the businessmen is famed Detective Alan Pinkerton of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. And we're going to talk about him. The woman is Kate Warren, America's first female private eye. And she's amazing. We're going to talk about her. But her so-called brother is not her brother. And he's certainly not an invalid, because that's Abraham Lincoln. And he's wearing a disguise. They put him in disguise. They give him a code name. And I love the fact that they are going on this train, speeding in the middle of the night to avoid this secret society planning to kill him. That is, by the way, I just ruined chapter 1 of the book. You don't even have to read chapter 1. The prologue is done. It is done. I just said it for you. And but I just ruined chapter 1 for you. But that's how the book opens. We open on that scene. And Josh Mensch, who is my brother, who you will see, his name is on the cover of this book. And, you know, when you meet someone named Josh Mensch, you got to work with the Mensch, right? And those of you laughing and getting that joke right now, that joke does not work in Alabama as well as it's working in South Florida. Because in South Florida, in Boca Raton, that joke kills. But Josh Mensch is my co-writer. I met him and loved him, and we've done 2 books now together. We did the first conspiracy together, and now we're doing the Lincoln conspiracy together. And Josh and I the reason we love working together is we love, I'll say it this way, you got to find the best parts. And how do you find the best parts to give people for history? And to me, the best parts, it's like the Supreme Court definition of pornography, which is you know when you see it. And for me, we always have, Josh and I have the same best parts. My favorite scene, one of them in the book, is when Abraham Lincoln's finally told that there's a secret plot to kill him. And what happens is Lincoln's in a hotel room and he's exhausted. He's been shaking hands all day. And they say to him, listen, sir, there's this plot. They're coming for you. We know you have this big event in Philly tomorrow. We want you to skip the event. We're going to get you out of here early. We're going to save your life. And Lincoln is like, I'm not missing my event in Philadelphia. And they're like, what's in Philly? And here's what Lincoln is actually doing in Philly. Abraham Lincoln is in Philadelphia because he is there to honor. They're going to raise a big flag in Philadelphia. They're going to honor one of Abraham Lincoln's heroes, a man named George Washington. And no way is Abraham Lincoln missing George Washington. And sure enough, the next day, Abraham Lincoln goes to Philadelphia, risking his own life to be there, raises a flag at Independence Hall, and at Independence Hall is talking, listen, it's where the Declaration was signed. He's talking about the Declaration, how everyone in America deserves an equal chance. And he says, and God bless Josh Mensch, he actually found, I brought it here, This is the actual quote that Lincoln says in his speech that day. As he says, if we can't save the country without that principle, and then Abraham Lincoln pauses and he says, I was about to say that I would rather be assassinated on this spot than surrender. And I love the fact that Abraham Lincoln says those words, right? That I'd rather be assassinated on this spot, knowing full well that there's a plot to kill him at that moment. And it's not a throwaway line. He means it. And he pauses and it hits him. And what is fantastic about that moment is right soon after that moment happens is when they whisk Abraham Lincoln out of there. I won't tell you how. You'll see it in the book. I'm not going to spoil the ending. I'll spoil it and say we know he lived. That's not really a spoiler, but you will see how they get him out of there. You'll see the code name they give him. And it's one of my favorite parts of the book. And Josh is also, and those are the moments we love. But when we were debating doing this book, what was very important to us is it's titillating for me to come on here and say, we found the secret plot to kill Abraham Lincoln, even though there's been books written about it, but here we're going to tell you about it. But what was far more interesting to Josh and I, because we had plenty of stories that we could have done. We had all these different plots that we were looking at. But the reason we picked this one is because of the context of when it was happening. You can see the Civil War unfolding in front of us. And you can see that the country is cleaved in two. And whatever side you're on, you hate the other side. And you think that the other side are horrible, awful people. Does that sound familiar to you? That is exactly where we are right now. And what I love about the book, and what Josh and I, every single page, wanted to get through to anyone who reads it, is that this is not just a story of Abraham Lincoln and the plot to kill him, but it's a story of what great leaders actually do in that situation, because that's where we are right now. And Abraham Lincoln doesn't come in and start yelling at everyone and meeting everyone with a fist. Abraham Lincoln never meets anyone with a fist. He meets them with an open hand, an open heart, an open mind, far more powerful than a fist. And, he's so hated at the time. He's so hated that in, I think it's 10 states, they didn't even put Abraham Lincoln on the ballot because they hate him so much. In the South, they didn't even vote for him in those states. They said, I don't care if he's the rightful nominee. We're not putting his name on the ballot. He's so hated that 3 days after his election, 3 days is as long as they give him, South Carolina passes a resolution they're going to secede from the Union. They hate him so much that the hate mail starts pouring in there, burning him in effigy. It's a whole disaster. But Abraham Lincoln, and by the way, all right, they're plotting to kill him and murder him. And Abraham Lincoln knows it, and he rides into D.C. a week and a half after this plot is foiled. And he gets to D.C. at a time when he should hate everyone back. And you know what he says in his inaugural address? He says, we should not be enemies, we should be friends. Right? He says that we should defer to the better angels of our nature. That's where we need to be right now. I, this week, have been on Fox News with my friends on Fox News. I've been on NPR with my friends at NPR. You know what everyone says to me in the green rooms before and in my ear now when I'm on these, when I'm waiting to go on? The one thing that both sides actually agree on is the way that we talk to each other right now is disgusting. It's disgusting. We're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong. And we need to do better. We need to defer to the better angels of our nature. I'll leave you with one last thought, and then Mark and I will answer any questions you have, and we're going to talk about new things as well. But I think one of the things that's also very important as we put together this book is that you get to see, we all know Abraham Lincoln at the end of his story. We know after the Emancipation Proclamation, we know that he wins the Civil War. He is Saint Lincoln almost by that time. And of course, when he takes a bullet in the head, it becomes even more so. But what I love about this story is this is Abraham Lincoln at the beginning of his story. He's making mistakes. You'll see him doubt himself. You'll see, when he gets the nomination to be president, you know what he's doing? He's in an alleyway playing handball. He's just a guy. And I love him for that. I love that he goes to see, one of the last things he does is he goes to see, he wants to go home to see his father's grave, and he wants to see his stepmother. And he goes to see his stepmother, and he's such a big guy that he walks into her house, and she's sitting in a little rocking chair, this little woman in this rocking chair, and he's so big that he physically puts his arms around the rocking chair and the woman in it and hugs them both because he's so much more massive. I love that image. And she starts crying. He supposedly starts crying in the account. And she then says, when he leaves, I'm worried that he's going to be assassinated. I'm worried I'm never going to see him again. She's absolutely right. But when you see Abraham Lincoln as a human being, I will always say it, and it is, to me, just a core belief of mine. We, right now in America, we build these great statues to our heroes, and then we worship at their feet, and we do them a huge disservice because we are treating them like they're not human beings anymore. And we need to remember they were. Anyone you look up to, whether it's Abraham Lincoln or Rosa Parks or Kate Warren or George Washington, had moments where they were scared and they were terrified and they didn't know if they could go on. But they continued to march forward. And I hope that this book provides you proof when you see Abraham Lincoln that he's not the perfect person who does everything. They lose the inaugural address. They're so disorganized. Literally, like they misplace it. His son misplaces it. But it's proof that Abraham Lincoln, like all of us, we are all terrified and we are brave and we are scared and we are amazing. Some of us all in the same day, some of us all in the same few minutes, especially these days. Look around, right? As we sit in all of our apartments and houses and, wherever we are. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's proof we're all human. So that is kind of the very quick overall arching idea of the book. We're going to bring on Mr. Mark, who I think will magically appear. Watch us. There he is.
Well done, my friend. And thanks for the invitation to join you back again. I also opened your book to chapter 69. So I think
by the way, we promise that every book comes with 69. That's the promise we're making here today, just for Books and Books customers. It's spectacular.
I'll take that and the signature. Thank you very much.
Oprah can have a car. We give you something a little bit better. And I love that all of you Dirty Mind people are thinking the most horrible things. But you have your thoughts. Enjoy it. It's Friday night. Have a drink. Enjoy.
So you and I met some years ago through your great work with City Year. And so thank you for not only what you do day to day as a professional, but also what you do for our community. We want to celebrate all of those heroes. And so thank you very much. We had a fun night that night, and that began our friendship. I also want to commend you on your amazing COVID-19 hairdo. It's looking quite lovely. There's a hashtag out there called Hair for Decades, and I think a few of us
got it. I have it.
Suffering the consequences. I hear Mayor Jimenez talk about the thing that people are most interested in him getting open are barbershops and hair salons. Well,
I have no problem with either of those things.
So. And I want to thank you as well for our conversation yesterday. The reality is that as we pivot to programs like this and formats like this, folks like you are essential because you're great sports, but you're also very flexible. So we really appreciate the opportunity to be together tonight.
Love you. Love you for that.
Ask you a couple of questions.
Yep.
And the first one is, I think, and I've seen a couple in the chat as well. So for those of you that are interested in asking questions, throw those in and we'll get to them, to many of those. But, Abraham Lincoln's been written about almost as much in history as Jesus Christ, Napoleon Bonaparte. Tell me about the desire to write about him.
First of all I want to do is call Napoleon Bonaparte right now. That's all. It's the great. How did no one come up with that? So, why Lincoln? So we had done the Washington book. We had done the first conspiracy, and I think if I'm being honest, we're probably playing a little bit of game as all writers play when you do your second book in the series. Is you got to play top this, and how do you top him? How do you top George Washington? Of course, with Abraham Lincoln, but I think for us, it really. I remember. I'll never forget the conversation. Josh and I were just talking about it recently. It had less to do with Lincoln and it had more to do with the Civil War. Because for us, I just felt like, look around, look where we are. And we felt like we're in a really bad spot right now in our culture. We're in a really bad space. And I think it would be silly to just think like you can do things in a vacuum right now. I feel like all books, the best books that you read are not books that you love because they take you and tell you about another character. Even if you love that character, what you're really looking for is a story about yourself. The stories you love most tell you something about yourself. And you see, great stories are mirrors and great heroes are mirrors. And Abraham Lincoln is certainly a mirror for all of us, right? It's because of what we aspire to be. He's the best of us, right? We see him as one of the best of us. And I think for us, the big picture, the mirror wasn't oddly Abraham Lincoln, because we knew, Abraham Lincoln can fill the seats, but this was the story. And we found another story about him that was later, but it was that idea of the Civil War is coming, and what do you do with it? And that was the real core of that nest egg for us.
So it's 1861. The book opens, and there's a very disturbing story about a beating in the Senate by a member of Congress. And you alluded to this in some of your earlier remarks about this moment in time and people coming together or being more partisan. But can you imagine that this gentleman literally gets beaten to death and there are no consequences for it? In some ways, we do that with our words these days and our accusations. But let me tell you, this country was at that boiling point. And
let's talk about that story for those who didn't, so one of the scenes you'll see early in the book, prior to Lincoln being elected, and it's a few years before, is the story of Charles Sumner. Senator Charles Sumner is on the Senate floor in Washington, D.C., and he'd given this great speech about why we should end slavery. And I forget if it's the next day or a few days later, a sitting congressman walks in to the Senate floor, and he's got a walking stick, a wood stick with a metal tip on it. And he walks over to Sumner, to the senator, and says, "Senator, you have been, you've ruined the reputation of one of my relatives," who I guess Sumner had mentioned in the speech. And he picks up his cane and he starts hitting Sumner with it again and again and again and again and again. And he keeps going, and he's bloodied. And his Crab and Goyle are standing there guard so no one can save him. And they're going again and again and again like a baseball bat. This is a sitting congressman physically beating a United States senator on the floor of the Senate. You think we hate each other now? And we just like, you need to set the stage. And it almost sounds naive, but I'll say it is, I think we were caught off guard we know that, listen, it's a civil war. We know it's brother against brother, right? That's how it's always taught to us. I don't think either of us really appreciated the level of venom. It's one thing to not like someone. It's one thing to hate someone. It's another to want them dead. And I think it was pretty staggering. You'll see in those early parts of the book, we really wanted to paint that picture to kind of give your perspective.
And I think that's a great takeoff for the way you brought the book together. You talked a little bit about Josh and the work he did with you and the research, but I think NPR described the pace of the book as kind of relentless. And I liken that to the idea of being on a locomotive, that train that's taking Lincoln from Springfield to DC. Everything is frantic and frenetic. But more interestingly enough is that you're really running multiple storylines and they're converging. You're seeing how they come together, but you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Listen, I thought I knew everything about Abraham Lincoln. I knew there had been a plot, but the things you uncovered and wrote about, I did not know about.
I love that we convinced you that he even lives after John Wilkes Booth. We fooled you on all levels. So listen, there's this Hitchcock quote that I used to keep on my computer for years when I started writing thrillers. And it was, I'm going to paraphrase, but it basically was, it's not the bang that's scary. It's the anticipation of it. And with this, we know at the end, Abraham Lincoln lives. He's not going to die the whole book. So how do you maintain the suspense? And you'll see. And what Josh and I had to do, for those who don't know, Josh was the executive producer on Lost History. So we helped save the 9/11 flag with him, and we did all this amazing work with him. And he was the best writer and researcher we had on staff, by far, bar nobody. Award-winning documentarian. And I had the idea for the Washington book, and I went to him, and the publisher was sending me all these writers who are kind of, regular, normal history writers. And I read their books and I'm like, yeah, the research is good, but it's boring. I'm bored. I don't care. It's not alive. And I went to Josh, and the publisher says, "You're going to Josh?" I'm like, yeah. And Josh even said to me, he's like, "I've never written a book before." I'm like, "I've seen your writing. You're going to be able to write a book. We're going to do it together." And it was so funny because the first time we worked together on the Washington book, he wrote everything chronologically in the first draft, and then I do the second draft, and then he does the one after that, and we alternate. And I usually do the first we work on the first 50 pages, and then we go from there. And I said to him, no, this is all in the wrong order. And I took the entire book and kind of took it apart and re-put it back together and was like, oh, this is a cliffhanger. This goes here. This is now foreshadowing. This is going to go. And I literally was like just moving all the pieces. And then he was like, oh, now it's scary. And I'm like, I know. And then I just added and I rewrote all the cliffhangers. So we had, and it was, and we obviously, I was doing research, he's doing research, I'm doing writing, he's doing writing, but we figured out kind of the way we moved together. And so by the time we got to this book, we had done it once before and now knew what to look for. And so when we find those moments like them on the train or Sumner on the Senate floor, we're like, oh, this is going to be beautiful because it really sets up the tension that's coming.
So that's a question that was put in the chat that talked a little bit about how you write with a partner, how much time elapses. And I think you covered a little bit of that, but maybe a little deeper dive. And then Library of Congress, what role did that play in terms of research?
Yeah, no, I mean, we rely, everyone's like, oh, where'd you do your research? I'm like, there's this thing called libraries. We have libraries, they exist. I mean, when you speak to kids, by the way, they're like, and I'm like, does anyone know what a library is good for? And they'll be like, raise their hand. And I'm like, what's it good for? They're like, books. I'm like, what can you get at a library? And they're like, you can get books. I'm like, well, why is a library good? They're like, because they give you books. I'm like, no. And then finally, like one kid will be like, because they're free there. I'm like, they're free there because kids don't even know. So everywhere from the Library of Congress, from the National Archives, from all these different places, and yes, online, it was the resource to find some of the most amazing things because that's where you can, when we do this book, it's easy to probably find some of the things, right? You can go and read Doris Kearns Goodwin and you can just kind of like see some things that are there. But obviously the fun to me is, of course, always making sure that you're bringing the primary sources in. And what was vital to us were always getting the primary sources. So the primary sources for us was vital to get the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons were amazing. We had to have the Pinkertons in there. Are we still on there? I want to make sure we're on there. We're good?
I can hear you. We're having a little back and forth. There you are.
Oh, we're back. Okay. Well, I'll say this in case it was lost because I just never know. So the vital thing for us are the primary sources, just to cut to it. And one of the best primary sources in the book were the Pinkerton diaries. Alan Pinkerton, let's talk about him for a moment. Amazing guy who winds up making his way to Chicago, wants to fight crime, kind of gets the bug for fighting crime. And one of the things he wants to do is he thinks the cops in Chicago are dirty. He's like, they're corrupt. So he hangs out his own shingle. And the shingle is this big giant sign with a big giant eyeball that says, "We never sleep." And whether it's true or not, but basically people say that's where we get the word private eye from. Right. From the giant eyeball, private eye, from Alan Pinkerton and the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. And here's the part that I love. Alan Pinkerton, one day, a 26-year-old woman walks into his office. And her name is Kate Warren. 26-year-old widower. She has no kids, but she has to support her family. She sees an ad in the newspaper for a private eye, and she walks in and says, "I want the job as a private eye." And Alan Pinkerton is like, "Shouldn't you be the secretary?" Like, no one at that time is hiring a woman to be in law enforcement, much less to be a private eye. And Kate Warren is not taking his crap and says, "You know what? Men talk to me and say things that they don't say to you. They brag to me and they say things they shouldn't be saying because they want to impress me as a woman." And Alan Pinkerton, to his credit, realizes in that moment, you know what? Men are going to say things to her that they're never going to say to me. Because Alan Pinkerton's greatest asset, his greatest power that he has as an investigator is he infiltrates. That's what he does to your life. He will infiltrate. So he takes Kate Warren and puts her with all the women and all the wives in the Knights of the Golden Circle, the secret society that is trying to kill Lincoln. And he says to his other one who loves to drink a lot, "You go in the bar." And he sends him into Baltimore and says, "You go in the bar and just say, 'Oh, I hate Abraham Lincoln, and boy, do I, wish slavery lasted forever.' You'll make friends." And you say that, and people go, "Hey, you're going to be my friend now. Why don't you come hang in our secret society?" And why? It seems obvious to us that it's a trap, but back then they didn't watch 50 episodes of Law and Order. They're like, "Come with us, join the club." And so Alan Pinkerton is like a termite. Termites, they come in, they eat the foundation, they eat those big giant support columns, and then the whole building crumbles. And that's his power. And so I love the fact that we get to see, when we look at the primary sources, Alan Pinkerton was a meticulous keeper of a diary. He made sure all of his detectives kept contemporaneous accounts of everything they did on every day. When you look at it, you're like, why are these people ever working? Because they're writing down everything that everyone said and what they did. But as a private eye, he needs to know who your sources, who'd you talk to, what time did you see him, where was everybody? And it became for us a treasure trove of trying to put this giant puzzle together.
And he seemed to have an expectation that his team would do the same type of field work and put together those notes. But his relationship with Kate, by the time 1861 rolls around, I mean, he has tremendous faith and trust in her. And really, she's a key player, including being on the train that night, as you talked about, to bring President Lincoln through Baltimore and into Washington, D.C. And that is, it's not only dangerous, but again, never would typically see a woman in that role. And so, to his great credit,
he trusts Abraham Lincoln to her, right? He says, here's the code name, you dress him up. She puts on the great disguise that you'll see in the book. And, she becomes a footnote to history. Not to me. She's a hero. I'm fully convinced that Kate Warren under her dress has like a magic lasso. She is Wonder Woman. You're going to fall in love with her. She's an incredible, especially that scene when she walks into Pinkerton's office. She's perfect. I mean, it is incredible.
Job interview. You talk about Pinkerton, but at the end of the book, I think you do a yeoman's task of trying to rehabilitate a little bit of his reputation. Obviously later in his life, and he seemed to live to be about 150 because he was married, remarried, kids, so many tragedies. But there were some writings at time and some accusations that maybe he wasn't on the up and up. But I think you did a great job of telling it and saying, listen, we've looked at all of the primary sources, and this is where we fall out.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important to us when you read the book. You'll see there's one account of the secret society. I love the scene, but you see this secret society. They meet in this dark candlelit room, and they slowly try to figure out who's going to shoot Abraham Lincoln. Who's going to be the one who pulls the trigger? And they all line up and they're drawing straws. And so Mitch draws one, and Brad draws one, and Mark draws one, and Christina draws one. And whoever has a short straw is going to kill Abraham Lincoln. That's right. And I won't ruin the scene, but I'll just say, I don't want to ruin it, but you'll see that, let's just say there's not just one short straw. They want a backup plan. And you'll see it, and it's fun to watch it play. But when we look at the account of it, there's only one person who actually can verify that this happened. And we say there, listen, we can't verify this one. This is who it's from. Take it for what it is. And it was always important. When we don't know the answer, we will say, we don't know, and we kind of doubt this, or we've looked into this and here's where we come. I hate when historians, we had a review last time. We got amazing reviews, but we had one historian who said, I totally disagree with Meltzer. This is the exact way it happened the other way. And I'm like, and it was something in the book that a little tiny detail, but he took us to task for, because we basically said it could be this way, it could be this way, it can't be verified. And he's like, I know it was. And I'm like, that's just reckless and it's wrong. Like, nobody knows it was, because no one was there except this one person. And I think for me, I think historians have for centuries, want to tell you, here's the way it was. I will now present the truth to you. And to me, as we all know, truth can be many things to many people. So we over and over in the book say, listen, especially in the end, we saw this and we saw this. We don't know how to square this circle, but we're going to give you all this evidence. We think it's this way, but we want you to know that this is an opinion. All the rest are facts. And I think readers, I hope, really appreciate that.
So Baltimore, Maryland is yet another character in this book. And I learned an awful lot about the secret societies, the secessionist groups, and all types of other factions, militias. It seemed like the Wild West, and yet it was a state that never ended up seceding from the Union. Their governor stayed true, but they're an important backdrop, and everything just seemed to emanate and outflow from Baltimore. And so, I wonder how Baltimoreans know this history or are learning this history because of you and Josh.
I did an interview in Baltimore. Was it was yesterday or on Tuesday. And it's interesting because you think, that they would know. This was the most famous story in the world at that point. I mean, in America, certainly. It was on the front of, you could see the newspapers, you can see the writings about it. But as we're talking, you got to ask yourself, why do I not know this story? You start feeling stupid. I didn't know the story. You're not alone. Why do you not know the story? This was the most famous story, but guess what happens basically a week later? The Civil War explodes.
Right.
And then 4 years later, Abraham Lincoln gets a bullet in his head. And this becomes, again, another footnote that gets lost. And listen, Baltimore, they're not proud of this story. This is a black eye on Baltimore. You think Baltimore had bad press last year. I mean, go kill Abraham Lincoln and you have really bad press. So I love the fact that Baltimore is kind of, in fact, we were supposed to do an event in Baltimore and I was like, is that a smart idea? Is that a good, am I going to be safe there? So luckily I'm safe here with you, meaning.
Yes. They're like, Brad, please come by train.
Right. I was like, why do they want me getting off one train and then going to the other? And wait a minute.
That's the weirdest thing, that they literally have horses draw the train across the town.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So let me tell you how the plot really works. So Abraham Lincoln, when you come through, now we can take Amtrak, we can go to Boston, and then you want to take it to New York, you can go to Philly, you can come to DC. You're on Amtrak. But the way it worked back then is different wealthy companies, and usually magnates would own a section of the country. You own this part of the Northeast, you have the Philadelphia, Baltimore area.
That was him.
And our main guy, right, who you'll see in the book, he owns this section right in Baltimore. And what's amazing is wherever way you come in, you got to get off the train in Baltimore and you have to walk a mile or take a horse-drawn carriage, or the horses will pull your car. But the train track ends, you move over here, and then the train goes this way and goes to Washington, D.C. and heads south, goes to D.C. By the way, I just said south and went like this. South. This is my new south. And that was the plan. The plan was Abraham Lincoln's going to get off at this train, and when he does, and he walks or takes a horse or anything, that's the kill zone. And why do they know where it is? There's no Secret Service back then doing security. So they were publishing, not only that, but they were publishing Abraham Lincoln's train schedule, who he was meeting, when he was meeting with everyone, in the newspaper every day, because they were like, this is great, everyone's going to come meet him. Not realizing maybe we shouldn't tell all of his enemies who hate him exactly where he's going to be. But that's why the plot works the way it does.
And you couldn't get to D.C. on a train without going through Baltimore. There was no ands or buts about it. I think about President Lincoln. He probably was, in terms of presidents pre-Secret Service, so many plots, and yet he was a guy who would ride from the White House out to the old soldiers' home every weekend by himself, and, a sitting duck, if you will. And so when you detailed that, you could actually feel the tension, like, no, Mr. President, you have to know that's not a good idea. And yet he was very much about, let me do what
connection. He was a connecting guy. I mean, he has this, one of my favorite little details. I haven't told this story anywhere. And again, I wanted to bring things here that you couldn't hear anywhere else, but was the story of Grace Bedell.
Yes.
Because we were talking about the letters and the things that he would write with troops. So there's an 11-year-old girl named Grace Bedell, you'll see in the book. And Grace Bedell, before Lincoln, while he's running for president, writes him a letter that says, hey, some of my brothers are going to vote for you. Some won't. But Lincoln is clean shaven at the time. And she says to him, I think people would like you more. You do a little better if you grew a beard. And he writes back to her, says, I'm taking it under consideration. I'm going to think about that. Thank you, Grace. And then he starts growing a beard. And to this day, people are like, did he grow the beard because of her or not? And you see when his train is going from Illinois and coming to Baltimore and coming to DC, Grace Bedell, actually, she comes to see him. And he's excited because it's like he knows, I know it sounds crazy, but he remembers her and is like, Grace, come here. And she comes with flowers and she comes to meet him at the train station. And the first thing he says to her is, look, Grace, this is the beard I grew because of you. And I love that an 11-year-old girl is responsible for the most famous beard in history. And I will tell you, and I've told no one this, but when I was at the National Archives, maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, they knew I was working on the book, and they brought out the Grace Bedell's letter. They actually have the real letter. It is not open to the public. You can't see it, but they know my obsession, and they showed me the letter because they said, I don't know if they have the one he wrote to her or the one she wrote to him. I forget which one they have, if Lincoln saved a copy or if they have her response back, but it's in the National Archives. So when you go there, don't try to steal the Declaration of Independence like Nicolas Cage. get the Grace Bedell letter, and you will be the king or queen history nerd that day.
We're here for the beard letter. I'm with you.
Yes.
You know, we've got some questions in the chat. We'll get to those in a couple minutes. But one of the things that Lincoln dealt with throughout his life was loss. And so you tell the story about him going to see his mother, Nancy Hanks, his stepmother. But he lost his mother before he was 10. He lost his sister in childbirth at 18. And of course, his father had passed. And he lost, well, you know, 2 sons. And a lot of people believe that had a lot to do with sort of his melancholy, as we refer to it. But many believe that he was suffering from depression. Wasn't treated at that time, wasn't known at that time, but he had a lot of loss around him, which some would say led to his open heart and his ability to listen to people, the way he wrote, the way he connected to your word. Thoughts on that?
You know, it's always interesting because I obviously, like you, I love consuming anything that gives me insight into Lincoln, because I feel like if I understand him, then I can be him. And I don't mean being president or anything like that, but to be a better person. How do we get to be someone that we hold in high regard as that? And I think for me, do I think that that's the causation of his kindness? Maybe. I don't know. There's lots of people who lose and have really crappy things happen to them over and over, and they become really bitter about the world. Yeah. So, you know, I certainly believe in his sense of depression. He's a guy who dreamed about his own death, right? He had a vision, and you'll see it in the book. He has a vision in a mirror where half his face is messed up and half his face is good. And Lincoln himself, playing Freud to himself, says, it means that I'm going to be assassinated and I'm going to die in my first term in office. And he's obviously wrong about the date, but he's dead right about the ending of the story. And, you know, that's a pretty dark thought that you're taking with you as you enter the presidency. But I think, and the reason you'll see a lot of stories in the book about Lincoln's childhood, and not because I want to play armchair Freud, but to play armchair Freud, you see these stories of him where, you know, a baby bird falls from a tree and he's riding with his friends on horseback, and then he stops and they're all like, why are you stopping to put a baby bird back in the tree? And Abraham Lincoln's like, if I don't help the baby bird, then I'm going to not be able to stop thinking about it. And that is a sign of a nice person. You know, you're not being, you know, character is what you do when no one's watching, and what you think is important when it doesn't matter. He's not doing that because he's running for office. He's not doing because he needs something from anyone. If anything, he's making everyone late. But, you know, he's like, I have to do that right thing. And I don't care if you're 10 years old or you're 52 years old, Mark, like sometimes it's hard to do the right thing, but someone has to. And for me, I don't think that the horrors in his life make him a nicer person. I do think, though, that they have to give him that level of empathy. You know, you see the letters that he writes to fallen troops. You see the letters that he writes to families. You see the letters in the book that he's writing where you're just like, oh my God. I mean, they're you know, he writes to one of like a family that loses multiple children, and she's like, and he says to the family, like, you know, I've buried a lot of family members too, and this is what makes me feel a little better, and now I want to share that with you. And that's not a president writing. That's just someone who is a good human being. So I you know, causation is a harder question. I just think he has something within him that is a level of empathy, and maybe it's all the death, or maybe it's just, you know, your nature is. I feel like he's almost fully formed even as a little kid. He's doing these deeds long before everybody dies on him. He's still being that person who he was. So I personally believe, and this is just my personal belief, that as you get older, you just become a more accented version of who you are. If you're a jerk, you're going to be more of a jerk. If you're impatient, you're more impatient. Look at anyone on their deathbed, and they are who they are to the extreme. We become caricatures of ourselves. I watched when I buried my own parents. At the end of their lives, my mother, who was just, you know, never had a bad word, she was on her deathbed. And I said, Mom, how you doing? Because it just instinctively came out a dumb question. She's on her deathbed, and she said, fantastic. And I was like, wow, that would not be my answer there. But that's who she was. And so she just becomes even more extreme, and my father as well. So that's my Lincoln armchair Freudian for tonight.
Well, I think it's pretty darn good. So I'm going to give you 3 quick names, and I want 3 rapid fire responses.
Yes.
All right. William Seward.
Super awesome senator, secretary of state. Surprised he's not bitter that he lost.
Very nice. And you referenced the team of rivals concept that has been so fleshed out. How about my favorite name in the entire book?
Wait, let me guess it.
Go.
Is it Hannibal Hamlin?
So how about President Hannibal Hamlin?
Oh, it's the best name. It's the best name in the whole book. There's no question. Okay, so back then you could not pick your vice president. It was picked for you at the convention. Abraham Lincoln's vice president in his first term was Hannibal Hamlin, who I also just found out is who the Avengers fight in the next Avengers movie, is Hannibal Hamlin.
And he was from Maine, right?
He's from Maine, right? I was like, Hannibal Hamlin from Maine. If we have President and listen, you can't help but ask what happens if Abraham Lincoln dies. If they kill him and this plot works, is President Hannibal Hamlin or Seward or whoever they takes over because someone else dies, are they better? Do they rise better to the occasion? Do they give us something that's more inspiring? Like maybe not. There's no way to know. Anyone who tells you they know is a big fat liar. It's just a theory. But here's what I do know is that the story of Abraham Lincoln is, this kid who comes from nothing, who teaches himself to read and write, with sticks in the dirt and rises to the highest office in the land, is not just the story of our 16th president. That is the story of the American dream itself. Oh. And I think beyond the Emancipation Proclamation, beyond the Civil War and what happens in the decisions and the permutations of things and dominoes that have to topple in just the right way for it to work out the way it does, beyond all that, I think the difference on the American psyche would be profound. That's what I believe.
Last name, Captain Cipriano Ferrandini.
Cipriano Ferrandini has the greatest mustache in the whole book, and this is a book with great mustaches. We promise you that. You get a great mustache on nearly every character. He is the leader of the Knights of the Golden Circle and the offshoot of it, the secret society. I know. It's supposed to be a short answer. He's a barber, twirly mustache, and he just might kill you.
And a central figure not only in Baltimore but in terms of the entire plot. So
yes, he's the bad guy. He's got a twirly mustache. The only thing he's missing as a bad guy is the cat and the laser sharks. If he has that, he is everything we need him to be.
Listen, and currently many of us need a barber. So I've got a couple questions for you. It says this is the second presidential conspiracy that you've done. Are there other presidents that you're looking into writing about, i.e. Kennedy?
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we're getting the questions from everyone watching. So the answer is yes.
Canada.
Oh, who is it?
His name is Keith, and he says hello from Canada.
Okay, Keith. So good question. So yes, we have done. Look at this. Can I just tell you, by the way, is that when they originally did this cover, they wanted it to be big on this side and short on this side, so it'll be the opposite of this. And I was like, why would you do that? They wanted, I'm like, make them look the same. So we had to switch it. So my graphic design obsession with kind of doing things the same and being that OCD about it. We did Washington. We've done Lincoln. Yes, we are doing someone else. We already are working on it. I can't say who, but I will tell you, because I promised you things that no one else has. But in terms of new books, and this many people have seen, this is not the new part, but we do these kids books. If you're here, I hope you know this, but I'll say it in any case, I started writing kids books to give my own kids better heroes to look up to, heroes of kindness and compassion. And, especially now, I like that product placement right here. Leonardo da Vinci. Here's the next one is Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to show you the one after that.
There we go.
We just got the proofs for it. This may be our most important book we've ever done in the series is I Am Anne Frank. And what I want to show you, because you guys paid for the seats, I want to show you this. We have not shown this anywhere, but I want to show you the art for the first time. No one's seen it. If the publisher asks you, you did not see this.
Cone of silence.
The cone of silence is on, and I'm gonna read this to you. This is the big part of the middle of the book. I'm going to read to you. I've not read to no one. I've shown the cover. I show the back. Blah blah blah. But I want to read this to you. This is the first ever reading of Benjamin Franklin. When a publisher asks you, don't tell him I showed you. They'll be so pissed. But this is what it says. In my life, I worked hard to improve things, including improving myself. That doesn't come easy. When you're trying to improve things, there will always be a risk of failure. Don't let it stop you. By learning from failures, you will make progress. New ideas are like lightning. They can appear instantly, striking from nowhere with staggering power. That power is yours. Use it wisely and you'll change the world. And check it out. There's pen, there's the end. Anyway, this is the first reading.
With the word power.
Yes, and I actually, it's my favorite, new ideas are like lightning. That's when we knew we couldn't finish writing the book until that. When you do, and let me show you also, don't tell anyone I showed you this. So in the back of the book, we always hide like little Easter eggs. And, we put like Nikola Tesla there, and you can see Edith Clark, and you can see, Michael Faraday and all these amazing heroes. Okay. But look who else we put in there, because we did a book about lightning. That's Doc and Marty McFly. That's right. So this is historically accurate that Doc and Marty McFly meet Benjamin Franklin. I think really all of history owes a thanks to us for finally getting it right. So yes, that is, don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone you saw that, and please don't tell anyone you put it in there. But I want you to have it. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
Here too. I think when we were doing the City Year auction a number of years ago, you were super generous, and I think somebody could bid to have their name in one of your books as a character. Maybe that's an opportunity for your I Am series to have your caricature.
That page you just opened to has a charity winner in there.
Oh, really?
On that page. Yes, you will see there's a little family in there.
You're always
so we do it now. In fact, we just did it for the
too.
Yeah,
it's some good ones. Sure, right?
Yeah, we always hide in every single book is the next hero. So if you want to know who the next hero is, so before we announced Benjamin Franklin, if you bought that book and you had a good eye and you're like, why is Ben Franklin here? That is why. So we hide it in every single book. We also hide the number 27 is there. I'm hidden in every book. Superman is hidden in every book, or Clark Kent, unless you're a lawyer for DC Comics, in which case that's not Superman, guaranteed not Clark Kent. But we really do help a lot of charities, and we do auctions and they're really hard because Chris Eliopoulos, our amazing artist, has to get their likeness perfectly right, and if not, they're going to be pissed at us forever.
So a couple of comments and questions. Some people are disappointed that you did not wear a top hat this evening.
Oh, yeah, wait, hold on.
All right, stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to still ask some questions. We've got time for a couple of more. Oh, here we go. Oh, yes.
You thought I didn't have one, did you?
Wow, I didn't.
I'm doing the rest of it like this.
But, we had a few people concerned that you were not in costume.
I almost did it in the start, but then I thought, no, I'm just gonna
get there.
Save it for the end.
By the way, there was a lot of debate with the actual style of hat that Lincoln wore when he was portraying the invalid brother on the.
No, huge debate. Everyone wants to know what his costume was, and it's because people just started reporting on it loosely. You'll see in the book that we say, listen, some people say this, some people say this. We believe it's this. I firmly believe that what we say he wore is exactly what he wore, and you'll see all the evidence why.
I believe it too, and then I couldn't get that image out of my head, so I appreciate it. A couple of quick questions here. Will there be a sequel to The Escape Artist?
Yes, is the answer. That is actually what I'm working on right now more than anything else. I'm working Benjamin Franklin and Anne Frank, as you can see, they're being proofed and bound and checked. I've been working at length for so long on Zig and Nola, and that is, I'm hoping, they say maybe next year, but obviously because of the virus, but the goal is to try and probably get it out to you next year. But yes, Zig and Nola are coming. The Escape Artist, those characters are two of my favorite I've ever worked on. And yes, thank you for asking about them, because I'm with them every day. They are living in my brain, and Nola is killing lots of people.
How about the biggest aha moment or surprise in your research?
Ooh, I think my favorite was, I still love that one where he goes to honor George Washington. I love the Grace Bedell. Yep. Let me do one that we haven't talked about, because there's a lot of good ones. Oh, you know what I love? I love his buddy, Abraham Lincoln. So he doesn't have at the time, there's no Secret Service doing security, right? It doesn't start doing security work until 1865 when Lincoln's dead. But one of the things that he does do is he knows he needs some security, and they have some cops and police meeting him at every stop. But he basically brings his buddy, who is like this big, again, giant burly man who carries a Bowie knife, however you say it, and guns. And it's, to me, the equivalent of basically saying to your toughest friend from high school, being like, dude, come with me in case we get in a fight. And I love that even Abraham Lincoln does that. The other thing is, I love the story of Abraham Lincoln's son losing the inaugural address.
And it's so Robert Todd.
Right. Robert Todd is like, comes on board. He's there for like meet girls and drink. And everyone's like, he's the playboy. He is like having fun.
Harvard.
Right. He's taking a little leave from Harvard. He just wants to meet girls. He just wants to drink. He wants to have a good time. And what does the guy do? Dad, I lost the inaugural address. And Lincoln's like, you had one job. You had one job. Yeah.
I love that. He gave it to a bellman or something. And it kind of gave you an idea of what you've seen in other portrayals of Robert Todd. And yet he was Lincoln's only child who lived to maturity. So,
and is there when Garfield.
Yep.
When Garfield gets attacked, he is there when to watch another president go down. It's an incredible story.
Well, I didn't know that. Abraham Lincoln belonged to any secret societies that you found out?
Oh, that's a good question. We didn't even do it because we didn't get, our thing is right into basically you'll see the book ends as he's sworn in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. He's not on the list of, I don't think he's a Freemason. I know there's 14 US presidents who are Freemasons. I don't think he's on the list. That's a good question. And that's going to basically, you've just described the rest of my night now. So thank you for ruining that.
Significance of the number 27.
I will never say, oh, you know what I'm going to also show you? Because you know what? You guys are staying the full hour, and I want to make sure we do it right. The other thing we did, I should have said this. What we did with I Am Anne Frank is, how do you write a book about the Holocaust? And what we did in the inside, you see that kind of beautiful, like glowing light. It's like a soft touch. We wanted it to be about hope. But when she goes into the attic, what we did with the book is we just felt like this couldn't be like a normal book. So I told Chris that we're going to shrink every page to just a horizontal thin panel, black up top, black at the bottom, like we letterbox the whole thing, so that as she goes in the attic, the space around her shrinks. And as you get to the end of the book, it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller around her. And you'll see when you actually get to see the finished book. It's just no one knows that either, so please don't tell anyone. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful rendition of it.
We're keeping a lot of secrets for you tonight, Brad. That's all I can say.
I trust anyone who's here. I trust you. This is the family. As far as I'm concerned, if you're watching now, you are family, and I appreciate it. I'm serious. I trust you with it. Don't put it on Twitter. Person who's thinking about putting it on Twitter.
Why ultimately do you think the conspiracy and the plot to kill the president in 1861 failed? What was there one ingredient or a confluence of ideas? What is it that you think ultimately foiled that?
I do. Listen, I think it's a lot of good fortune comes his way. Things, work out for in ways that you need it to work out for, especially even the hiring of Alan Pinkerton. But at the end of the day, as in all kind of good guy, bad guy stories, at least the cliche ones in real life, the bad guys just have big mouths. It's why conspiracies fall apart. Because no one can keep their mouth shut about something that's really big. And these guys, at the end of the day, the real reason it falls apart is because they can't stop bragging about it. They can't stop. They're so lost in their venomous hatred for this man who they think wants to, get rid of slavery. And to be clear, that's not how Lincoln is elected. He doesn't want to abolish slavery. He has a containment policy. Like, if you have slavery in your state, you keep it. If you don't, you keep that. And any new states, we're going to have no new slavery, but we're going to contain it. It's only until people like Frederick Douglass and great thinkers like that kind of help Lincoln evolve on the idea. But to anyone who is, just a racist like the Knights of the Golden Circle are, they see Lincoln as public enemy number one, and they can't keep their mouth shut. So that's what undoes them. If they could just really keep it quiet and they didn't speak to Alan Pinkerton's people, maybe Pinkerton would never find out what happened. Maybe they would, but it's pretty amazing to watch them kind of screw themselves up.
What world leader would you like to meet, and what would you likely ask them when you meet him or her?
I'm going to assume I have a choice of going to the dead, and why pick alive when you pick? I mean, I don't say because we're here on this book, because people have asked me that before, and I say, I would probably pick I'd probably pick Mr. Rogers if I was picking a celebrity, or Jim Henson. But world leader, I always say it's Abraham Lincoln. There's no question. He's when you do these kinds of books and you research your hero, there's a huge risk involved with it personally, because when you tighten the microscope on anybody, be it famous people or your friends, when you look real close to any of us, you start seeing the cracks. You see the cracks in the person, and you start seeing the scars, and you start seeing, and Lincoln has them, his entry point on slavery. Even when slavery ends, he's not perfect in every way on it. He makes a couple really bad decisions, allows states to decide that they can pass their own laws to limit black, rights of freed slaves at that moment, that are not necessarily the best choice when you really look back at it, if you're really trying to give people freedom. But my God, everyone falls apart in some way, but Lincoln is the one who lives up to the hype. Even when you tighten the microscope, you can find a couple bad decisions politically. I don't care about those. When you look at him as a person, you're just like, my gosh, over and over, does the right thing, makes the right call. And I know it's hard, especially today, to find justice and have us agree on it, or what the right thing is. We can't even debate truth. Truth has become this thing that doesn't exist anymore. But Abraham Lincoln makes me believe in people again. He really does. And maybe that's why we study him. Again, it's not to find out about him, but to find out how we can be that way too.
I think that's a perfect spot for us to end. I think your comments about a hero living up to the hype, living up to what you have always thought, is a great place. A couple of thank yous from folks. My friend from childhood, Dr. Cam Patton, says, thanks for coming and speaking to Leadership Florida last summer.
Oh, yeah, we love those Leadership Florida guys.
Invisible Army. And then a great idea that in honor of Nurses Week this week and what we're going through on the front lines with the coronavirus, maybe an I Am Florence Nightingale book in your I Am series.
I'll tell you, I believe, so she is on our short list of Xavier Riddle people. So you may, don't tell him I told you, I'm not supposed to say anything, but you may see Florence Nightingale. We have, because the list of Xavier Riddle characters on the cartoon show we do on PBS, there's some really good ones. And by the way, another secret, PBS gets pissed when I say this. Do not tell them. Abraham Lincoln's coming on Xavier Riddle, and it's awesome. So he's coming.
I think it's funny when you say PBS people get pissed, because that doesn't sound
right. And then they pick out, they're like the Jets and the Sharks. They're like baseball bats, and they come out. They're pretty.
They're more like, we're very upset with you. I'm disappointed, as my father.
In NPR voices, but they're the nicest people in the whole world, so you can't be mad at them. It's true. They really are the nicest.
Brad, you're a delight. I'm going to invite Mitchell Kaplan back, and he's going to spend a few moments thanking everybody again. But what a delight to be with you. Great questions from our audience. Thanks for spending a Friday night and a little bit of my birthday together. All of my wonderful friends that came out and supported this as my virtual birthday party. Brad, we got to do this again.
I would love to. I love you for mentioning City Year. One last thing before, Mitchell, I know you got to do the magic. I need to say a thank you to Mark, who has been a hero, who spends his 52nd birthday. And for those who don't know, is a masterful leader in our community. And I just want to thank him, not just for being here tonight, but for the service you give to our community. It means more than you know. And he has a great sense of humor. I told you that. One other quick thank you is to everyone watching tonight. Thank you for sticking around this long. We wanted to do something that wasn't just like, here's a half hour, here's your book. We wanted to do something special for you that really had some depth and some heft to it. Most important is the man that's, I don't know if he's here or here, because depending on the layout, but Mitchell Kaplan.
The sound that you guys are not hearing is the sound of hundreds of people clapping right now.
No, I appreciate it. But I will say, when you buy a book, where you buy it, you vote. You vote. And I know tonight you bought the book of Books and Books. I know you did, because that's how you're here. But continue voting there. Continue voting. I know it's easy to click a thing on a computer, click on their site. They are a local institution here in Miami, but all over the country too. And thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to buy more books, you want to buy any of the I Am books, any book you buy from me by Sunday, put in the cart. I will personalize it. I will do Father's Day gifts. I will do birthday things. Let me know, only because the last time we did this, I signed in my house for 7 hours. They brought 800 books to my house. I want to beat that for this one. So order as many books as you want. I don't care which one it is. I will personalize. I'll write Mary Higgins Clark book. So sending love. Thank you for joining us on a Friday night.
Thank you all.
Mary Higgins Clark
Thank
was
you,
a dear
guys.
friend. I love her.
Guys.
Thank you, Mitch. We love you.
You guys are the best. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. This was a remarkable evening, and come back for more. Thank you, guys. Love you, Brad. Love you, Mark. See you soon.
night.
Be safe, everybody.